I'd say 2024 was the hardest year I've ever had.
The family man, the future king. How will Prince William do both? He opens up to actor Eugene Levy on how he plans to reign during an intimate chat in Windsor.
That's the bit that excites me, is the idea of being able to bring some change. Not overly radical change.
We've heard William talk in the past, haven't we, about wanting to do royal with a small r.
That phrase about revolution or evolution, it sounded like he wants a bit of a revolution.
This is really good for him to be talking about this now. It's setting us up for something we're going to be seeing in the future, which is great.
It'll all be change, 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 William says. He'll lead in his own way. So what did Eugene make of it?
This was a conversation and a day that I never, ever, you never dream you could ever have a day like this.
And will Catherine and William accept an invite down under from the Australian PM? And will the children go too?
William and Kate going over there will be really big news in Australia.
That would be blockbuster.
Hello and welcome to Talking Royal. Charlene is away this week, so it's me, Royal Editor Chris Shipp, and as usual, our Royal expert Lizzie Robinson is in the studio with us. And what do we call you, Nick? Nick Ede, PR guru?
Yeah, why not? I love that.
Guru, that's
I'm
fun.
told who knew Meghan before Meghan knew Harry.
Yes. I
Which
knew
is-
Meghan very well.
Right.
I invited her to come to the UK to host a big charity event called the Global Gift Gala
Right.
a few years ago, and she was fabulous. You know, spent a lot of time together.
So this is before Meghan was famous. Well, she was in Suits at the time.
Yeah, she was in Suits at the time. But that was it. You know, people recognised her, but only people actually who worked in the city. It was kind of funny. You know, we go down Bond Street, no one bat an eyelid.
Because
We
everyone in the city watched-
In the city, they
Right.
all watched Suits. So she had this cult following even then.
Do you remember, Lizzie, when it was announced that Harry had this new girlfriend called Meghan Markle, and most people were like Googling, who is Meghan Markle? Well, obviously Nick knew who she was, but not many other people did.
Yeah, no, I didn't watch Suits at the time, but did quickly.
Yes.
We did quickly, didn't we? It's a bit of research.
Rachel Zane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you watch Suits before?
No, not before. I think I
No.
made it sort of work homework. And haven't you kind of got therefore, Nick, a bit of a, shall we say Piers Morgan story? Are we allowed to call it that?
I mean, listen, I think that people evolve, and I don't have any grudge in any
People
way.
evolve, right.
I think, you know...
So Meghan needed you and then didn't?
Meghan
Is
needed
what-
me and didn't.
Okay.
You know, I introduced her to lots of agents, model agents. I sort of really ingratiated her into the London life, which I really enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
Because she was a fantastic person to be around. And we kept on, you know, texting each other for quite a while. And even when she was with Harry, you know, she was still texting me. And then after a while, you know, we kind of petered off. I did what I did, and she went off to become a duchess.
Became one of the most famous people in the world, of course. But Piers Morgan always tells the story of being ghosted by her, you know, like she reached out to him. But this was 2014.
Yes.
And I was looking back at actually some of the interviews Meghan did at the time when she was referring to the UK as having cold weather, but the people are warm, and that she'd like to hang around for a while. And that was an event that you took her to.
That was, yeah, a big charity event I took her to. I took her to various different parties, etc.
Yeah.
We used to go clothes shopping. It was really good fun. And, you know, I actually didn't have
I
any...
used to go clothes shopping with Meghan Markle.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Yeah.
But, you know, the funny thing is I also took her to see some agents, and we had
Yeah.
some really fun times. And one agent, I mean, it's crazy, actually turned around to her and said, I think you should be in pantomime. You know, when a man plays a woman plays a man, we make a great prince.
And being American, she said, what is pantomime?
What is that? And then
Yeah.
he went, do you know David Hasselhoff? And she went, yes. Well, he makes a lot of money in 3 weeks. And then about 4 years later, the same person calls me up and says, do you remember that delightful girl that came to my office? I said, yes, a future princess. There we go.
Yes.
A real one.
She's not a prince in a pantomime.
Exactly.
She's a real one,
In real
yeah.
life. Look, and we've got quite a big week this week, haven't we, Lizzie? Because whereas we've spoken about, remember that first clip of Prince William having a chat with Eugene Levy on this Apple TV show, and it was all about getting drunk. Was that on your bucket list? Well, turns out the show wasn't just about getting drunk, and it wasn't just about these lighter moments. We've got a very, very significant insight into William's future.
Really significant. So just to set the scene, this is a new series of The Reluctant Traveller with Eugene Levy, and he starts out with a bucket list of things, doesn't he, of things that he wants to do. And one of the episodes is he's coming to London, and he's gonna see London, and he's gonna have a tour of Windsor Castle. And you see him receiving this letter, and he gets a personalised tour from the Prince of Wales.
And we're told he didn't know that Prince William was going to invite him for a personal tour.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a letter to receive.
Yes.
And he said genuinely it was a complete surprise. But this episode it's warm, it's funny, but more than anything, it's incredibly candid. And it is a really personal... it's personal reflections from Prince William, and one of the most personal interviews I think we've seen from him in recent times. He's talking about all sorts, from his views of his role as his future role as king, of family life, of his children, of the health issues that the family have had over the last year or so. It is incredibly personal.
And I think I haven't seen William talk this sort of openly and personally since perhaps not long after we started the job, and he did a documentary about the 20th anniversary of his mother's death, and both him and Harry spoke very movingly about it. So look, there's so much to unpack in here, in this episode, isn't it? Let's have a listen to William himself then.
I think it's very important that tradition stays, and tradition has a huge part of all this. But there's also points where you look at tradition and go, is that still fit for purpose today? Is that still the right thing to do? Are we still doing and having the most impact we could be having? So I like to question things, is what I'm really getting at.
So in asking, is that fit for purpose today, he's kind of setting up the kind of reign that he might preside over as King William V, and the fact that he wants to be a bit of a change maker.
I hope we don't go back to some of the practices in the past that Harry and I had to grow up in, and I will do everything I can to make sure we don't regress in that situation.
It sounds like the monarchy will be shifting in a slightly different direction.
I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda. Change for good. And I embrace that and I enjoy that change. I don't fear it. That's the bit that excites me, is the idea of being able to bring some change. Not overly radical change, but changes that I think need to happen.
We've heard William talk in the past, haven't we, about wanting to do royal with a small r, how he wants to do things for his generation. He wants to have as much impact as he possibly can. And if that is him evolving how the job is done, he is happy to do that. He doesn't want to, he says in this, he doesn't want to feel sort of anchored and restrained by the past. He wants to respect the tradition, but he also wants to move it forward.
But this was less about evolving. It was that phrase about revolution or evolution. It sounded like he wants a bit of a revolution. Is this still fit for purpose? And what did you read into that? I mean, that last clip there, how many times did he use the word change? I was trying to count it. 7, 8, 9 times?
Change for good, he's saying. That's about positivity, because I think there is a little bit of a negativity around the royal family, and he wants to change that. He knows that he's got this ability to listen to people and actually make those changes, as we just said. And I think this is really good for him to be talking about this now. It's setting us up for something we're going to be seeing in the future, which is great.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting, actually, watching how open Prince William was. And we were told when we were speaking to some of the executive producers that were involved in the making of this, how it wasn't scripted, there was nothing out of bounds, they could talk about whatever they...
Do we believe that?
They seem to have a very, very natural conversation that doesn't feel scripted. It doesn't,
does it? It doesn't feel like someone said, you can't go here, you can't go there. And that's our first... I mean, we even asked that question of palace officials. Did you say, don't talk about Harry and Meghan? And you'll hear in my interview with Eugene a bit later how that unfolded.
But we all know that Prince William, if he didn't want to go there, if he didn't want to talk about those things, he's very good at the pivot. He could have pivoted that away and talked about something completely different.
Very good at the pivot.
He obviously felt comfortable. And I think the other thing is that, we spend a lot of time around people, that know Prince William, that work with Prince William. We watch Prince William up close. And lots of what he says in this are things that people and sources have said to us about him and his thought process on things. So what I found really interesting was hearing him say it himself.
So him articulating things that we've been told, which is, I suppose, a relief to know that the sources that we speak to actually speak the truth, which is obviously not always the case.
I think also what's great is Eugene's almost like naivety and kind of innocence in the fact that he doesn't know that much really about the royal family. So he's learning, he's educating himself. And I think what's so good about this too is there isn't a royal reporter who, William will suddenly be thinking, oh, what they're going to ask me. This is somebody who's asking genuine questions, who's very interesting, who is a a Hollywood celebrity as well. And for William and for the Crown's PR, this is a fantastic move, definitely.
But it's interesting what he said to Eugene about what does and doesn't overwhelm him. History doesn't, family does.
Family does, yeah. He was. They were having a conversation actually in St George's Hall. The last time we were in St George's Hall, it was all set up with the banquet table, wasn't it, for Trump's state visit? But this time, William was in there chatting to Eugene, and he was saying, "Well, when we were children growing up, we used to race up and down here, getting splinters in our feet." But that was where they had that conversation about family and how that is the aspect of the job that does sometimes overwhelm him.
Yeah, I think stuff to do with family overwhelms me quite a bit. You know, worry or stress around family side of things, that does overwhelm me quite a bit. But in terms of, you know, doing the job and things like that, I don't feel too overwhelmed by that. Not now anyway. When I was younger, yeah, there are bits that overwhelm you, a bit like, whoa, are we actually doing this? Is this sort of happening? But with time and age, I think you feel a bit more settled in that side of things, and you go, actually, I could do that.
You really wonder, don't you, about what he means by, oh, whoa, are we doing this? When I was younger, how he found everything a bit overwhelming. And I suppose if you know, I remember having this thought when there was the coronation and, you know, poor old Prince George, poor young Prince George had to sort of walk into Westminster Abbey and think, my goodness, one day this is going to be me having my coronation in Westminster Abbey. So you wonder, you know, William famously had to walk behind his mother's coffin at a very young age. But he seems to suggest that as you get older, these things get easier.
Well, I suppose the thing is he gets to see it firsthand, exactly the right things to do and the wrong things to do. You know, as you say, he learned from a very, very young age that he has a responsibility, both to him, his family, but also to the nation as well, and to other nations too. So I think it's really interesting for him to say that actually he feels he can control this. And from our point of view, what's really good is that we feel that we've got, we can rely on him. And he's going to be somebody that actually we're going to look up to and actually enjoy seeing him in his new role. I
suppose you mentioned reliability there. He obviously relies a lot on his wife, and she's going to be a future queen consort, you know, in the role of supporting the king as he will be. But clearly that's been rocked by both his wife's cancer, his father's cancer. And that was, again, nothing was out of bounds in this episode, apart from Harry and Meghan, which is quite a glaring omission. But the health of his father and of his wife was also very much part of the discussion that he had with Eugene.
Catherine is in remission now.
Yes.
Yes,
is, yeah.
which is wonderful.
It was great news, exactly.
How did that affect the children, if I may ask?
Everyone has their own coping mechanisms for these sorts of things, and children are constantly learning and adapting. We try to make sure we give them the security and the safety that they need. And we're a very open family, so we talk about, you know, things that bother us and things that trouble us. But you never quite know the knock-on effects it can have.
Are you optimistic?
I am optimistic. I'm generally a very optimistic person, especially when I'm with someone like you, Eugene. You know, life is sent to test us as well, and it definitely can be challenging at times. And being able to overcome that is what makes us who we are. I'm so proud of my wife and my father for how they've handled all of last year. My children have managed brilliantly as well.
Well, I'm hoping every other prince I run into is as nice, open, and human as you.
I mean, there they are, sat in the Two Brewers pub. Have you been in there?
Yes.
In Windsor, which is just around the corner from Cambridge Gate. Eugene with his Guinness, William with his sweet cider, as he asked for at the bar, talking about, you know, what bothers them, how they operate as a family, protecting George, Charlotte and Louis from everything as well. Like we said, this interview was not what we thought it would be.
Open and honest sums it up, doesn't it, from Eugene at the end there. And, you know, we get an insight into his thoughts on family life. He spoke last year in South Africa to media there about how last year had been brutal for him. He says in this that it was the hardest year of his life, you know, with both his father and his wife undergoing treatment for cancer. But he also talks about the importance of creating a stable, secure, happy home for the children. And we know that. We've seen them, you know, they try where possible to do the school run so that they're around for pickup, they're around for dinner. And
Well, actually, let me just pick on that because William did say that, didn't he? I think Eugene Levy says to him, "What is your working day like? Is it 9 to 5?" And William went, "Actually, no. We try and do the school pick up and the school drop off," which a lot of people would say, "Well, that's brilliant." Others might say, well, that feeds into this narrative that William and Kate don't work hard enough and everything's organised between, 10 a.m. and 3 p.m.
I think they work very, very hard, actually. And I think, obviously, that does play into that narrative. But actually, I think that he was trying to say that he is looking after his family and making sure they have the most normal life possible. But, I don't think life stops for a prince after 10 past 3. I think actually it starts in many ways. He's going to be doing lots of things, working out what he's going to be doing the next day, and also writing speeches and working with everybody. So I think there's a lot that he does as well. But I think what was so great about this was really just to see him sort of reflecting on who he's become and the things that have been put in his way, which have caused issues for him, but how he has been strong enough to support his family, but also how his family have been strong enough to really come together. Yeah. And I think we want to see this. This is the sort of thing that, the general public want to see more of a real royal family. This is what he's doing.
As opposed to the late Queen Elizabeth, who, when she had a young Prince Charles and Princess Anne, went off on a Commonwealth tour for 6 months and left them behind. That is not William and Kate's style. In fact, it's the complete opposite, isn't it?
Opposite.
And we learn that not only do they bounce up and down on the trampoline, and that I remember he said that Louis and Charlotte like beating each other up on on the trampoline, but that also there's a very strict policy in their household when it comes to the phone.
The mobile phone, yeah. The children are 12, 10 and 7. And he says in this, no, they don't have mobile phones. But, that it's all about, he talks about the change, doesn't he? And it's a change in how he's decided to do family life to the way that his late grandmother did. And he is very clear, and, the people around him are very clear that the priority for Prince William is the family. That is the most important thing for him, and I think you see that with the way that he approaches everything.
Now, look, if you want to find out how the whole thing unfolded, there were two people I suppose you could speak to. One is Prince William, and the other is Eugene Levy. And we were set a task. Well, I was set a task by Charlene. 3 weeks ago was it, when she said, "Right, you've got to get him on the show." So what did we do? We got him on the show. It's quite an interesting story that while I was doing the interview, you were sat in the bar. Do you want to talk about that in the bathroom?
In the bathroom, yeah. So we went
in the bath.
Basically, pretty much, yeah. We went and did it at a hotel in London. They were set up for a day of filming.
We're not used to these kind of things, are we? There are all these entertainment correspondents, just like this is how they do things. Like we were going, whoa, this is not what we do.
Getting on deck, and you've got your 8 minutes, but Chris was in the room with Eugene, and meanwhile I was tucked in the bathroom with all of the equipment.
So think of a normal hotel room. I mean, it was quite a big one, not massive, not a suite, but they'd removed the bed. I was doing the interview with Eugene, lots of camera people and technical people. You and
the executive producer, we were having a chat in the bathroom about the filming while you were out there.
Okay.
But we were also surrounded by absolutely all of the equipment, which sort of in the shower, in the bath.
Yeah, I noticed there was. It was quite something, wasn't it? Right. Listen, I suppose more interesting than your bathroom experience, perhaps, is actually what Eugene had to say. And I suppose, actually, speaking on behalf of all royal correspondents, it's the kind of interview we'd all really like to have with Prince William. Not that he gives many interviews. The first question, therefore, when I sat down with this, wonderfully charming Canadian actor, was, well, how did you get the interview that we all wanted? What's your secret?
Well, I don't know. It could have been. He felt it was kind of a familiarity with Jim's dad. Yeah, possibly. I wish I knew, or maybe he was a fan of the Reluctant Traveler. I don't know, or perhaps there was a comfort factor there with me that I didn't know about. But whatever it was surprising.
Yeah, let me ask you about that surprising, because there you are, sat in a pub in Windsor. You had a pint of Guinness, he had a pint of lager or ale, and yet he opened up about some really important constitutional things, about what kind of reign he's going to preside over when he's king. That must have been a huge surprise.
It was, well, listen, there were no, I didn't have any barriers on, what I could talk about, which was something, and I thought, okay, but nevertheless, you never know. You don't want to, say anything that might be upsetting to him or something, because I didn't know whether you still have beheadings over here, so I had to be careful. But I was taken aback by how at ease he made me feel right from the first second we met, right? So there
Partly
was...
to do with the scooter coming in.
Yeah, the scooter coming in, and that was like a whole way to start the day. And I kind of got that there was a sense of fun and a very kind of relaxed sense that he was setting for what the day would be. So when he got to some of the later on in the pub, when he got to some of the more personal items, I had the feeling this might be something that he was ready to talk about or wanted to talk about, and used me to do it.
As someone who was born on the other side of the Atlantic, but also spent a lot of time in the US, how aware were you of the difficult year that he's had with his wife having a cancer diagnosis, his father, the king, having something at the same time?
Yeah, well, we were well aware. I mean, from Canada, so where Canada's a bit more tuned in to the royal family than, let's say, the United States would be.
And King Charles is your king, after all.
King Charles, yes.
King of
were
Canada.
Member of the British Commonwealth, of course.
What do you think you learnt about the British royal family by doing this interview and getting the future king to open up in the way that you did? Of course, it's not all castles and beautiful ceilings and wonderful churches. It is about a person at the end of the day, isn't it, who has quite an extraordinary and some might say, unenviable job.
Yeah, well, the thing that I think struck me the most was how normal a family life, he actually has when he talks about, taking, at the end of the day after the pub interview, he had to leave to pick up his kids from school. They have family dinners together. They live in their house in Windsor. They don't live in the castle. He seemed very down to earth to me. Like I'd never had any dealings with a member of the royal family.
But you meet a lot
before.
of very well-connected, very famous people in the job that you do. But there was something different about this, yeah? He
was just very approachable, and I think maybe wanted to convey that this is who he is. And it was my sense that this is the beginning of possibly a different way to go for the monarchy.
Different form of monarchy, yeah?
Yes, different from the past.
Yeah.
And again, this is my sense about what I'm picking up here. But there would be possibly a reinvigorated, approach to what the future of the monarchy is going to be.
This whole series, this season, is called Bucket List. I think there was a conversation you had with him about getting drunk. Did you actually get drunk? Just had the pint, yeah?
We just had a pint. We had a.
Although I noticed your Guinness didn't go down very far.
It didn't go down very far. Well, because I'm not going to be guzzling my beer while he's getting into some unbelievably interesting conversation. But it shows you what a sense of humor he actually had when he came out with that in the trailer, I believe. For the show, when he said was getting drunk with Prince William on your bucket list, and I thought, wow, this guy has a great sense of humor.
And would you say, as he asked you, it was the bucket of all the things you did in all parts of the world? And the series looks amazing.
Oh yeah,
but this is the bucket.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, Who am I? I mean,
You're Eugene Levy.
Yes, I'm. Oh, thank you. I actually forgot there for a
There
second.
you go.
Yes, but I mean, this was a conversation and a day that I never ever you would never dream you could ever have a day like this. And the fact is that he did feel comfortable enough with me, and perhaps was a big fan of this travel show or of me. I don't know, but there had to be a reason that he said, you know what, this is something I'd like to do, and committed to do it, and was wide open about what we could talk about.
Now, we spoke just now about you being Canadian, and I think you said in the show that you used to sort of go to school and sing songs about the late Queen.
Yes.
In the sense that Prince William said he wanted to be a different kind of monarch, I just wonder whether, having met him, got inside his head a little bit, do you think it's time to sort of change those kind of historic relationships, like with your home country? Should you still have a king who lives in London as your head of state?
Well, listen, it's we did get our own flag in 1967.
Yep.
Canada is an independent country, and I think a lot of the country loves the fact that we still have ties.
But you've not just met a future king, you've met the future king of Canada. And I'm just wondering whether you're happy that your future head of state is going to be Prince William, or would you rather have a Canadian doing that job?
I don't mind that at all. And of all the people, I mean, having met Prince William, I mean, I would say yes. This is I'm quite proud of the fact that this man will be the head of state for the country. No question about it.
One very quick question before to wrap up. Were you ever told you couldn't ask questions, for example, about Harry and Meghan? Did you find that was just something you just didn't want to go near?
I was not told that I couldn't ask anything, but it wasn't really, up to me to get into that. I had no interest in asking him about that because it was, very delicate issue, and certainly not up to me to get into it. I think there were other things that I could lead the conversation to that might be interesting for him, and interesting for the for the world to hear. But that was something I wasn't necessarily interested in getting into.
So, do we believe him? He said, no, I wasn't told. I couldn't ask about Harry and Meghan. I just didn't really feel like that was a space I wanted to get into.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, it did feel very natural, and like they were, he was able to talk about, everything and anything. So,
well, as a PR man, Nick, do you think like the Apple's producers were sitting there going, go on, ask him about Harry?
Well, I think he wanted a blockbuster. They're going to have one anyway, but I think if they
Right.
did ask,
Yeah.
they probably wanted him to do so. But, I think this is such a natural conversation that he probably didn't feel he had to. I mean, Prince William does talk about Harry a little bit, just in passing.
one thing I did learn when I was in the bathroom with the executive producer was that actually they had loads planned to film in London and had lots of other sequences set up, because I don't think they didn't know what to expect from their time with Prince William, and actually they got out of it far more than they were ever expecting. So they ended up ditching lots of the
Apparently
other.
There was a sequence on Jermyn Street where they obviously got him dressed up in a
dressed
suit,
up,
and like
yeah.
they did all that filming. And I bet you the shop on Jermyn Street thought, great, I'm going to have my time in the sun, and they ditched it all.
As someone said, you don't start filleting out bits with the Prince of Wales, do you? So
we think we got everything.
But also Apple TV as well, to go with them, which is a bigger viewership in the US.
Yeah.
It's actually
Yes,
a really
Apple
great
TV,
way.
You can see it here, but it's not as well
as big.
patronised as, say, Netflix or Amazon.
No, but over there it's huge.
Yeah.
And I think that shows a real, idea of actually let's go and show us who we are.
Right.
It's an amazing interview. It's not on terrestrial television. It's a really good idea. Streamers can be seen everywhere. It'll be, on people's phones, etc.
And you're right to point out, we've spoken on this podcast before that the King himself is making a program with Netflix and also with Amazon. So they see they've got this global platform which they really do want to capitalise on. So look, Eugene Levy wouldn't ask about Harry. Let's talk about him, though, because actually he's been back in court. He's got this very big court case against the publishers of the Mail and the Mail on Sunday, and it involves lots of other people. Let's not get into all the detail, but I suppose one of the things that came out of it was that in the legal papers that were dropped, there was some claims by Harry's side that Prince William and Kate were spied upon, effectively, or that there was payments to a private investigative firm for information on William and Kate.
Yeah, the lawyer claimed that Kate and William were victims of unlawful information gathering. So
that famous UIG, unlawful information gathering.
Yeah.
Yes.
So lots of the headlines around this were Prince Harry drags brother into his court case.
Right, which was never said in court, but it was in some of the subsequent reporting and articles about it.
Yeah.
Writing that, of course, is quite inflammatory, you could say, and therefore, I think overnight we had a lot of pushback from Harry's side saying, no, he was not trying to drag his brother into this. And what it told me was just how much Harry wants to maintain those good relations that he currently has, at least with his father, not with his brother, and he doesn't want anything to upset it. And this kind of reporting potentially could have done.
Yeah, they're trying to make the point that there is a distinction here between the general case that's being set out and the specifics of the Duke of Sussex's claim. And those close to Harry were saying that those two things are different, and it was to do with the general case rather than the Duke of Sussex's.
Because I think for Harry, this could be really bad from a PR point of view, because we're seeing this way of him sort of coming back into the UK. You know, he did some wonderful things with Wellchild and also with the Diana Award. And you can see that he has a really great relationship with those people who he spent a lot of time with, and he really cares. And obviously with the Invictus Games, etc., he's really trying to push that. So this kind of headline would be really difficult for him to deal with, because he's trying to really push the fact that actually he could potentially come back in some shape or form, and he won't want anything to sort of negate that.
I think this is right, though. I think the fact that there has been any pushback at all suggests that, you know, Harry is mindful of how that will come across, and he is, and
therefore worried about the relations he has. Is exactly
and that we know how fragile that
Yes.
relationship.
Yeah, he had the meeting with his father a few weeks ago, but there's a lot to build on and a lot of bridges to rebuild. So yes, listen, William and Kate haven't been to Australia for a long time, and they've now had an invitation from the Prime Minister of Australia to attend. Albo, as they call him in Australia, or Anthony Albanese, was in the UK and spoke to Australian reporters about a potential royal visit by William and Kate to his country.
I find His Majesty a delightful company. He's interesting. He has a great sense of humour. He has a great interest in our country, and his visit earlier on was very successful, and we're hoping to welcome his heir to Australia in the not too distant future next year.
Okay, the heir to Australia in the not too distant future. In other words, William and Kate, please come and visit, because you haven't been since 2014. And this, by the way, is a Prime Minister who previously wanted Australia to become a republic and no longer have a monarch as head of state, and shows perhaps how sometimes you can either change your mind or just think, you know what, that's not an issue I want to get into now.
I think it's not an issue he wants to get into. I think he feels in a really good space. He's had a great time with the King, and I think he understands too that, you know, William and Kate going over there will be really big news in Australia. Will again be a really great thing for the economy. Will create a lot of noise and be very positive PR both in that country but also in the UK as well.
Because what happened in 2014 when they were last there, and there was a little baby, I think George was at the time.
George was only little, and the other two haven't been. But the Princess of Wales said back at, I think she was at a St Patrick's Day parade
George
earlier
coming
this.
down the steps. That was his entrance to Australia.
There we go. Yeah, the Prince of Wales was St Patrick's Day this year. She was saying that she would love to take the children there. That it's only George that's been, and he sometimes says that he's amazed that he's been because he was obviously very little. Probably
and what George
doesn't
picked up
remember.
a nickname while he was there, didn't he?
did.
Because the aforementioned debate on whether or not Australia should be a constitutional monarchy or a republic was going on then, as it obviously does quite often in Australia, and he was referred to as
The Republican Slayer. There he is at Taronga Zoo in Sydney. Those pictures went everywhere, didn't they? And the King and Queen had a very successful tour to Australia last year. The polls bounced up, didn't they? In their
But we found that
favour.
people weren't really that interested. They just had a referendum in Australia, which was, not connected to the royals, and the government had lost it, and they were kind of burnt by that and didn't really have any interest in having another one. And as the Prime Minister said in another bit of that interview, Albo, as I now call him, my mate Albo, that there won't be another referendum during his term as Prime Minister. And this is a Labour Republic supporting Prime Minister in Australia, and he's ruled that out.
Yeah, the polls did show that the tour was a success. They bounced after it. And do you remember when we were at Sydney Opera House for that walkabout that the King and Queen did? How many people turned out to see them? There did feel like a real, genuine excitement in Australia to have them there. And this, if Kate and William went, that would be blockbuster.
And he said next year as well, didn't he? He said it, so it could be then. That's crazy.
Said sort of coming period. There's a standing.
When would you do it? Because obviously,
invitation.
if it's going to take all three kids in the school holidays, because we know William and Kate aren't going to take them out of school to do it. That leaves only Easter, summer. They tend to be off for the whole summer, so that's maybe October half term.
Well, it has to be. We're not out of the realms of possibility that it could host the Earthshot Prize at some point. You'll notice realms of possibility.
Yes.
No, you didn't.
Oh,
joke. Sorry. You have to explain
not
the
beyond
joke.
realms. Australia being one of the 14 realms.
Thank you. Yes,
Well done.
sorry.
Good,
I'll
good.
get my coat, will I?
Love that.
Okay. Not out of the
Did you
realms.
miss it as well?
Who's your writer?
Yeah, sorry.
Did you miss it, or was it just me?
No, I did miss it.
You just looked at me blankly. Shall we do that again? It's not out of the realms of possibility.
Of the realms of
that the Earthshot Prize could go to
the Earthshot Prize, which is in Southern America this year, in Brazil, and then hasn't done Australia.
Hasn't done?
Yes, no, it hasn't. Invictus has been.
So
Australia,
that is a potential.
Okay, so next year then, let's just look ahead to next year, and if the editors watching, they need to get the travel budget out. We could have the King going to America because it's their 250th anniversary of independence. And we could have William and Kate going to Australia.
And don't forget the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting is in Antigua, so...
And you won't be in the toilet this time, I promise you.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'll make sure of that.
Thank you.
Nick, we've really enjoyed having you on. Thank you so much.
for
And thank you for bringing your insight and all that sort of the public affairs world that we're not part of. And actually is really, really useful to have your input. So thank you for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed being here. We're back next week, of course. Charlene always asks us anything you can talk about next week. We always say no. No, exactly. We always say there are things, but we can't tell you.
Yep.
So that's where we'll leave it. Remember, you can catch up on all the episodes of Talking Royals on YouTube, ITVX, or wherever you get your podcasts. And we will see you next week.